Okay, we are ready now.
Yes.
Okay, so welcome people, and this is 19th Moksha Coffee. Today we will talk about standing up for yourself, and why actually we are talking about that. Who are we? Don't help me with English today, please.
Okay. My name is Zoran Milišić, and I'm a kinesiologist of 30 years or so. And my wife, Rosna, she's Maitri practitioner and yoga teacher, and also IT professional. I'm also by vocation IT professional, but I will always say that happened in my past life, right? So. Yeah, I've been doing this work with kinesiology for quite some time. And I was always doing it from a different perspective than only a therapist. So I used my life experiences and everything what universe threw in front of me to be able to guide and teach people who may be requiring help in similar issues and matters. So today's topic is that right?
Standing up
Okay,
for
standing up
yourself.
for yourself.
And can I just add
yeah,
one thing,
yes.
please? So together we have more than 50 years working on ourselves and working with other people.
Yeah.
Right?
Or even more than that. I think
more than that.
I think every second of my life was about something, when I look back. But going back to the topic of standing up for yourself, why is it so important? Why are we talking about that now in this time and age? I probably stood up for myself a million times, and I found it real difficult because of many reasons. And it is an important topic because there are times where standing up for yourself can be looked as advancement and sometimes as retraction, depending on the situation. So sometimes it is important that we persist. Sometimes it is important, equally important, that we give up. Not in terms surrendering, but giving up so that even with that we stand up for ourselves.
How we can recognize
there are
that
many examples of that. I thought you would ask me that halfway through the session.
Yeah, but how, because you mentioned that now, how we can recognize if we should just like drop it, or if we should go with the topic, whatever is.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll probably stick with the practical examples, but one thing just to bring larger perspective to this, when I stand for myself, okay, so there's a couple of entities here, and I need to understand which one of those entities is real me, okay? So I is standing for myself, okay? So what is I and what is myself, okay? So we need to act from the position of our nature, and if you don't know your nature, you can simply think of you as a gentle, non-violent, sensing, loving human being. Okay, so you don't need to be spiritual whatsoever. So being spiritual is very easy. Okay, all you have to do is become yourself, your nature, right? And that is the pinnacle of all spirituality. Okay, so and one of those things that is born with you is this a non-violent aspect of yourself. So when you are standing up for yourself, you really need to stand up for the truth in you. Okay, so sometimes and hopefully those situations don't happen often in our lives, we are challenged. And we need to persist and pursue our truth, our our goal in life. That's very important. And then sometimes doing that will actually become an obstacle. So it is really difficult to distinguish, but you have to place yourself in that position. I'll give you an example. People who mountaineers who go and climb Mount Everest. Many of them died because not because they failed to do something. It is because all their effort was projected into achieving something, so that they overlooked the dangerous situation. So, for example, if you if you go all the way towards the summit, and on the last camp, they have to start climbing around 3 a.m. and there's really narrow window of opportunity to actually reach the top, summit Mount Everest, take a few photos, and then come down. And that window is like half an hour. So if they miss that window, they can still summit, but on the way back, it's certain death. So sometimes there's a great effort required to get on the top of situation in life. For example, when everything's aligned, you have that window, the weather's perfect, and you reach the top. Okay. Sometimes you have to retract, you have to give up, and sometimes it takes more energy to give up than to actually continue further, and that giving up will save your life. So in both cases, you are acting to protect life. So it is sometimes it is the difference between the two cannot be explained unless you are facing that moment.
But practically, for example, if you have neighbors, what it was my case in Belgrade, they took parking places, and there were a few of them, and all of them, they were like big bosses somewhere, right, in the government institutions.
They're bullies, you're saying?
They just took parkings in front of the building for themselves.
They claim
it,
public space as their private space.
In front of our building. And then the other people there, we couldn't use it because they put the thing there, like the, like stick. And even they didn't want to bring up that stick, like, because they knew that people would not come there because it's, like, then they will go against you. And once I did that, I parked my car there, and the guy came and he just closed me, so I couldn't go out. And he said, okay, I will go tomorrow at 12 o'clock when I go to my job. And I said, okay, but I have a kid, small kid. I need, like place to move out my car if I need. And well, at the end, because I was afraid, I asked him to move the car so I can immediately go. And I was afraid, basically, and I wanted to fight with them, to call some inspection or somebody, but then my friend told me, don't do that, like, because they're, like big bosses. How you
they're
say
bullies.
that? Yeah, but like, and what is the way? So I was like, for a year, I was so angry, frustrated about it. So the part, and it's still like that. I'm not in that area anymore. I'm now in Australia, but the people there, they live the same life, because they have power, they can do whatever they want. The other people, they are actually, like, we can't do anything.
Yeah. So there's a few things here, now that you opened up the subject. It is interesting that in today's world, if you look at how the societies functions and governments and all that stuff, the very people who are preaching you about human rights and all that jazz, they are the actual bullies. They are the ones who are creating genocides. So, and it is a reflection of the state of the world today. So the deeper question arises: how how are these people in such power? You know, so the government must be corrupt, and if the government is corrupt, then it's a reflection of the society. You know, and one thing that you always see in these situations that the normal people, they are not claiming anything for themselves.
No.
They just want to live normal life. Uh, but the ones who are like that, they're claiming things for themselves. So how do you go about that? How do you fight that? That's a big question, and especially if you know that they have all the connections and that you don't have any legal remedy to or institution
Yes, to help
to
you to.
to help you how to deal with this. Okay, so it comes down then to a personal fight. You know.
And what to do, like, because I was carrying I was carrying for a year or more that, like, stress, frustration. I was angry
Yeah.
because I was so helpless. I couldn't do anything. And, it's not there. It was public. It should be for everybody in that building. If you come first, take and park. Next time it will be somebody else. So there are some people with the small kids and the thing for the kids.
The prams.
Yeah, and they would like, they have to go and walk.
Yeah.
And bring all that stuff with them because they couldn't ever park there because of them.
Yeah, it's one of the conditions of the society. See,
What to do in that situation?
today's world functions according to greed, possession, position, ripping off and all that stuff. So the one thing which I'm picking up from this situation is that, and that happened to me also a million times before. I noticed, for example, when I was placed in similar situations, right, that my adrenaline would go through the roof and I would start shaking.
Yes.
And I was always observing myself and asking myself, how is it possible that when I'm speaking my truth, right, I'm not settled inside? Okay, and that stems from my early childhood. The way we humans are brought up, and the issue, the core issue, and this is what the point that I'm arriving at is our innocence. Our human born quality of innocence, right? We are innocent human beings, and innocence implies that everything that's presented to you, you basically accept it as a truth, you know. So as the little kids are growing up, because tomorrow they will become, nation. They'll be carrying the humanity forward. The lies are imprinted in their heads. And this is the very moment where the division starts growing in them. So in your innocence, you believed, and also I believed, that I'm of no consequence, that I'm nobody, that I've got no choice, that my life is insignificant, and then that authority has a greater power than myself, you know? So, and then you completely become paralyzed with that idea, right? And you keep living your life thinking that as a truth, which is not truth. So that's why it was very difficult for me to express myself even as a little boy, because every time I would express my truth, I would be reprimanded according to the rules of the society. Okay, so the brain remembers that, and brain functions according to pain and pleasure, or fight flight situation. And then the moment you're trying to express yourself as per your truth, every system for survival starts fighting it, right? So you then create an inner conflict. So not only that you have external conflict, so you're fighting a rude person, right? But also you have the inner conflict within yourself because you know you are not a violent person. You are benign and gentle in your nature, right? But then you have to take all that against yourself and create such a strong inner tension, you know, and you're trying to win that situation where you have two enemies against you, you know. So one is you, and the other enemy is the other side. So it's a tough one. So um, when you don't stand up for yourself, when you submit or uh, subdue yourself, you may resolve something or avoid consequences of that and all that stuff. But then when you go back home in your own silence and aloneness, you're going to feel awful. And uh, I think the conflict is there as an energy to resolve something. So conflicts are not bad if they are if first if they come from the position of love, and secondly if they're used to resolve the issue. So they will quickly resolve the issue, right? Um, if you are going from the position of fear or dominance or all that stuff, you're going to become like the other person, you know. So one thing to remember in all these situations like yours is that you must not allow anybody to bring your frequency down. Okay, because if you
In
engage in
this
fight,
case, what
if
that mean?
if
In the example.
the only way to win is to submit yourself or lower your frequency to the frequency of that person, right? So, for example, if you want to catch a thief, you must be a thief. Okay. If you want to stand up with bully, you have to become bully, you know. So the world reacts like that, you know. So that the person will never appreciate your smile and kindness. They will appreciate the teeth, you know.
Yes, and then what's that mean in this situation? Should persons go further, like call inspections or something, or just drop the case? Because you can't fight with them, definitely with the
Yeah, yeah.
with like talk to them or anything. You will not do.
I think if every person would act according to their truth, that issue would never exist, you know. But the issue is there. Sometimes we are presented with situation like that to resolve something, you know.
You know what, in that case, for example, what I see as a solution, but I'm not sure if that's possible, is, for example, if every person in that building, for example, and in the area around that building, make a, you know, like stand up and say, okay, this is not okay, and like send emails to that, but still you need to lose energy.
Yes, you need to
On
lose
that,
energy.
yeah.
That's
But
correct.
there is like and also like for some reason people would not, it's not like spontaneous that they will all come together and say, oh no, you can't do that, this is not right. And like you have like three or five, maybe five families there doing that. But like you have 15 families not doing that, and still 15 families suffering because of five families. It's so, you know, it's
Yeah. So it's creating further rift and engagement into duality because action will create reaction, which will create action, which will create reaction, and it just goes on and on and on. Okay. So the the best way around it is like if you believe in your truth, if you believe that that is something that you must pursue, then pursue it. Don't give up. I had an example. I had a court case. I was engaged in a car accident. Actually, I was riding a racing bike because I was cyclist. I was cycling, and and a pedestrian knocked me off the bike because the pedestrian was running over the red light. Okay, so and it basically took me off. So and the whole case was set up against me from the very beginning. So at the first hearing, the judge came and asked me how do I plead guilty or not guilty, because if you plead guilty, if you admit, then the case is basically dismissed. You get some financial fine or something, and you get away, right? But and everybody was telling me just get rid of the trouble, just say everything they want you to say. Even the lawyer was advising, everybody was advising, right? But it just didn't sit well, okay? Because I realized if I say that, then I would be lying, okay? So I stood up and I said, I plead no guilty, and everybody looked at me, it was like complete silence, because it's a routine case, they are expecting to resolve things like that, but I didn't want to, So I fought. It took me 4 years, right? And I suffered financial loss and other non-financial losses, right? But I won the case, right? So and I had the whole government against me. But it's the power of truth, because it is something that I believed in, and I stood up for that. I wasn't trying to run away, and I was prepared to risk everything. So it was a difficult case, but I won in the end. Okay, so because I stood up for myself, and I remember I had about 14 or 15 uh, court appearances, and in each one of them, I had arrhythmia and heart palpitations and all that stuff. And it's so interesting to observe the body's reactions, and all you're doing is you're speaking your truth. So why is it so difficult to say that you are? When I ask you what's your name, you don't shake when you answer that question because you know that is your truth. So we should um, look at every aspect of our life like something like my name, So if somebody is doing something to me and it is not aligned with my truth, I shouldn't be uh, filled up with adrenaline and shaking by expressing that, So it is uh, it's a pattern, that you need to discover in yourself. And that whole court case and even this situation with your parking space, it was great opportunity to examine all the patterns in us, good ones or bad ones, and you just follow the adrenaline.
Yes, nice. There is also what I noticed there, what actually drives you back many times in that situations, in the situations that you should go out and like speak your truth or
Yes,
tell what you feel, what you think, is actually fear.
it's
And
fear.
yeah, it's fear. And it's made like it's also, I have also one example from today or yesterday. I saw one video from Serbia where the bus driver was so rude and hitting the lady with two kids. And I was shocked. I was shocked. And I remembered then actually in my mind, so many times I was in a situation that I could see that if I say something, there is some big guy who would, like, who'd be, who would physically, like do something or, like put you down or like hit you or something. So there was so many times, like in the traffic, so many times actually you can experience either the real violence or the hidden one,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
similar, then that means that if you say something, it will go to visible. And what to do that? Because we are like trained like that, especially there. Maybe not. I have to say that here in Australia, I have never had that kind of feeling for 4 years. But like,
yeah, but I must tell you that
in some countries you have that.
see, in some societies, violence is obvious. Okay, in other societies, same, but in white gloves.
Yeah, and
So there's aggression. There's also passive aggression, and humans are the same everywhere.
Yes.
So if you say Australia or Austria or Portugal or Serbia or any country, or people are people. People are always same, and the difference is maybe in 0.1%.
But
So the fear aspect is actually projection into the future, right? So you were considering your position. So let's say, for example, you're about to engage in some fight with a person who has connections in the government, right? So your mind is already aware of that, and it's uh, projecting the bad outcome. It's fantasizing about the most negative scenario, and then the fear kicks in, right? And nothing actually of that happened. None of it happened, and people that are bullies, they are sucking your energy through that portal. You see, they're feeding themselves on fears of people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in a position to do that. They wouldn't exist, So, even if the judicial system is not supporting you, right? If you pursue your truth, and if you are aligned in every element of it, and you need to analyze yourself with the laws of the universe, uh, in the end, you're going to win the case. It takes time and patience, but no human law can test the time in front of the laws of the universe, right? So no human law, no law on this planet that has been created by human mind can stand against the laws of the universe.
Yes,
So I know there are great lawyers, but they're really rare, whose job is to align the laws, the practical laws with the laws of the universe,
Yeah,
And
but there are situations which, like on the street, and what I mentioned is actually, like in the traffic, in different situations where, first of all, you don't have, when something happens, you don't have time to really think about, like universe or anything else. You're like, you can just feel the fear, because you can feel that that person, can be violent.
yes.
And yeah, that's what you said. It's true. But here, like in Australia, my experience is that they're like, when I feel like that, it's not on the surface. You can't see that like on the streets or something. Maybe in some areas, but here no. But there are like also like that kind of things where actually you have to suppress yourself, because they're doing that. Fine tuning with that, so they can,
Subtle.
it's a subtle level of that.
Yes.
But it still exists, absolutely.
Yeah. So one thing which is important to understand, when you are aware, when aware person doesn't mean that the person is aware uh, selectively or periodically. Awareness implies that you are aware all the time. So in these situations, with the careful observation, you will actually notice that the entity, which is called pain body, is given space to rise and appear, and then the pain body feeds on the conflict. So the person's pain body, which could be aggression, kicks in your pain body,
to my pain body.
Which is something to do with your past and violence in your past, you know. And then the two create a structure, and then that's basically how the conflict starts, right? So one thing is to relinquish it completely, you know, because as long as you are keeping the position on that issue, you are creating the structure and inner conflict, inner resistance, and that actually hurts, right? So if you think that all humanity, and not only humanity, every being in this universe, right, comes from the same source. There's only one source, and that same source created all these beings, our friends and enemies. Okay, so if we are denying the opposite, we are actually denying ourselves. So one way of dealing with this is to actually uh, uh, relinquish the situation, relinquish your position, and allow the universe to act through you. Okay, because if you don't have any position or inner conflict or inner resistance, then the power of the universe will flow through you without any obstruction, and then the situation may turn out completely different. So it is basically how we manifest those people to appear in our life, you know. So we can use these opportunities to clear our slate, you know, to release ourselves from all these pain bodies, you know. But it takes a lot of courage, and as I said to you from my example, you know, I was in situations where I absolutely knew it is my truth, but I was shaking, you know. So that's one way of doing it. Yeah. So try to relinquish and give the person rights to be completely right. So all the people uh, who are using the energy of conflict to feed themselves, if you deny them the conflict, they will lose the power. So we're giving them the power. The moment I'm thinking about it, see, now let's say, for example, we are talking about that person that took that public space for his own use. Even now, we are feeding the energy of that person because we're talking about it, you know. So if you completely relinquish the situation on all levels of you, right, not suppressing it, but completely relinquishing, then the situation will resolve to your benefit. You just have to trust that it is the case. So sometimes situation will require action from you. I always say an example: if you're driving a car and the car stops at a railroad and it doesn't want to move, and then you see the train coming with full speed, right? What you're going to do? You're going to relinquish everything, or you're going to chant, or you're going to meditate, or whatever, right? You're going to pray to God, right? You know, whatever you do, unless you move out of the car, you're gonna get killed.
Finish.
Exactly. So sometimes situation will require action from you, you know, and it is individual situation, you know. Later when things pass, then you can analyze and say, maybe I could have done this and all that stuff, you know. So it's all for learning exercise, but sometimes life will require action from you, and whatever action you're doing, it needs to work for life. It needs to respect life. It needs to protect life, you know. So when you are in the middle of a railroad crossing and the train is coming this way, your action of moving out of the car is the action of protecting the life. Okay, so you always do that.
And usually when we are in the situations like I mentioned before, like somebody took my parking or some other similar situations, then usually we actually judge that people as well. So we
Yes,
usually
yeah,
say, "Oh,
you're
he's a
passing the
jerk."
judgment.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
And
Maybe
how that
maybe they
actually
deserve it with their
maybe.
with their thing, you know. But I always say the bad people will always improve you, you know. And you have to be absolutely certain that you are not representing others, but you're representing only yourself. Okay? Because I mean, you just said that the person took my parking place. It's not yours. We determined at the beginning that it's public space. Okay, so it is not yours.
It's
Okay,
not mine.
so but because we individually claim ownership of something, and even we do it unconsciously, then that creates conflict because the person is actually is having exactly the same intention, you know. So how can he make you angry if he took something that is not yours? He can't.
Well, yeah, but
But
he
somewhere we also made a claim for that place, and even
it
though we
belongs.
say it belongs to all of us, but
Yes,
still
it
that
belongs to all of us.
means a part of you owns it.
The same as he, but it's not something that somebody
Yes.
could take for himself.
Yeah.
If I did that, for example, you know, like because they are big guys, they would kick me off like just like this.
Yeah, but you would never do that.
I would of course never do that.
Even if there's a total opportunity, if those big beefy guys were not there, you would never actually do it.
No.
Okay, so stay with that. Be happy with that.
And with searching parking place around. Hopefully I moved. Yeah. There's also one thing which is connected to the second story that I mentioned tonight, and it's why sometimes also I'm just confused. Why, for example, when there is some violence like the one that I mentioned before happened in the bus in Serbia, why people in the bus, why people are not, you know, like if you see that
Fear.
somebody fear,
Fear.
why they didn't stand up for that lady and say,
Fear.
okay, how you can,
Yeah.
how you dare to do that?
Yeah, fear because people gave the power to high authority, and that's the thing. This is what I was talking to some person just yesterday, and we came to the subject of what comes first, you know, awareness or consciousness, you know. So I'll answer that, okay, but I'll have to say this, right? So the consciousness cannot exist without awareness. Okay, but awareness can exist without consciousness. Okay, consciousness is the tool of awareness. Okay, so similarly, uh, your your thoughts cannot exist without you. Okay, but you can exist without thoughts. Okay, so you are not conditioned by anything, right? So if I identify with the thoughts, right, then I'm lowering my frequency. Okay. So in the same way, when you look at the system of any society or government and all that, every system needs people. You know, imagine what would happen if, for example, there was a king and he had a great kingdom, and all his population packed up and left the kingdom. Okay, what would happen with the king? Okay,
You talk about Serbia or what?
I'm talking about no.
So sorry.
So what would happen if there's no population? What happens with the king? Who can be king to?
No population,
Nobody. No
no king.
population, no king. So who has the power? King or the population?
Of course, population.
Population, exactly. So it's the population that actually makes the king, not king himself. Okay. So same thing with the system and with the governments and all that stuff, you know, the system needs people, but people don't need the system. Okay. So the power lies in people. So if you submit your energy to the authority, right? then you will have situation like that where you have a bully, you know, doing some violence towards some people, so there's some violence going on, and everybody's just, you know, uh, looking away or doing nothing, you know. So it is a it's a picture of the world. It is the you know the sign of time in which we live. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you resolve that situation? You would expect everybody to stand up and, you know, so who's the
I
judge?
think I'm,
Yeah,
yeah.
but who's the judge? Who's saying who's right or wrong? And then if you look at
But
it, you
what
know,
is
and if
excuse
you,
for violence? There is no
yes,
excuse.
there's no excuse for violence, right?
Yeah.
And actually the reason for violence is violence, you know. So if you're trying to, so how would you deal with this situation, you know? You would have to use violence. Even those people in the bus, if they stood up, how would they finish the
But
situation? They would have to use violence, right? But the violence breeds violence. It's always like that, okay? Love breeds love, okay? So if you send love into violence, violence cannot exist, you know? And love is your nature, okay? So people are not living their nature.
so when you say that, I understand that on one side, but on the other side,
It's
imagine like 20 people
yes.
in the bus sending love
Yes,
to
but
that
I'm
guy
yes, but I'm talking about
when
the.
he's,
I'm not talking about the consequence or the effect. I'm talking about the cause. The causal issue is that people are devoid of love. People rejected love. People don't live love.
yeah,
They are not acting on the basis of love. You know, those people that are sitting in the bus, their motivation for living is fear. You know, they're living their
yeah,
life because they don't want to die. They are living the life because they are running away from death. Okay, and by running away from death, they're creating death. You know,
yeah.
it is an
They
absolute
actually, they
paradox.
don't live,
They don't live.
they just
That's
exist.
it. But you see, to resolve that bus issue, you have to resolve the whole society. And you know,
Yeah,
I look at it that way. You know, and also if you now take this issue to uh, a saint who's meditating in the cave in Himalayas, you know, he'll tell you, well, you know, in the past life it was the opposite, you know. So it's a deed from the past life. And he said, action created reaction. That's why karma really means action, you know. So we are beings of the action. Right?
well, yes, it can be really complicated because what we can reach is actually just this life, and sometimes
Yes.
it's really not enough to understand
It is not enough, especially if it
how
happens
to.
too fast. I mean, I've been in
Yeah.
situations like that. I'm not saying I'm above any of that, you know. Uh, but I always say that situation brought me here. You know, without situation, I wouldn't be here, you know, when the situation passes, you know.
And
So it is sometimes, you know, you see, everything's ego driven things. The whole outer world is ego driven world, you know. And who's there to judge? Who's supreme judge to say that something's right or wrong? You know, so you don't know what that woman did to that bus driver in the past life. You know, if you subscribe to that theory, right? All you understand or see is actually what's happening uh, and what you're seeing at that moment, and you are acting according to the patterns in you. You know, so not only that we are karmic beings, we are also patterns beings. You know, we have patterns. So um, so it is an opportunity to understand how the whole thing functions, you know. And being spiritual doesn't mean that you're going to sit with your hands under your bum when somebody's hitting you. No way. Okay. So everything you do in your life, make sure that first you protect life. okay? And make sure that you are acting from the position of love, not from the position of possession or any other types of ownerships, you know. And this is what creates issues, you know, like people go to court, somebody dies, and there's inheritance, you know, and there's a will, but you know, family objects to that. They took each other to the court, and the whole family falls apart, you know, because of the ownerships, you know,
Possessions.
and possessions and all that, you know, not realizing that God actually owns everything, you know. Oh, I bought this block of land, and then and no, my father bought this block of land, and I have to, you know, fight for it. And okay, so how your father got this land? Oh, he bought it, right? But then somebody else owned it. So who owned it before? Oh, the guy bought it from whoever. So when you go down to the very first person who owned the land, who owned it before him? You know, God. So in the end, whatever transactions we do in life between the humans, it's just a very temporary thing, you know, because God is the owner of everything, you know. So what we do here in this lifetime, this little span between birth and death of the body, is totally meaningless, of no great importance, you know.
Yeah. Good.
Okay. So you can think in terms like this when situation like that happens, when situation like that is happening, you can ask yourself, okay, so where this parking space will be in 400 years, or where it was 200 years ago, or even this building, where is it going to be in 400 years, and so on. So you will see when you give it a time and fast forward it, you will actually see that everything will be dissolved in time, and there's no point of fighting for something that has no real meaning.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And there is one more thing. We have 10 more minutes, let's say. When you have something which is obvious, right? Like that thing, then you know where do you stand. You know, you will feel fear or you will do this or that, but you know what's going on. On the other side, you have that subtle force. You know, the situations when you are when somebody is actually putting you down in the white gloves, and you're even not aware. And actually then you can just suddenly discover that actually you're acting
you become aware later.
yes, because you were scared for, like, for example, here in Australia there is a rental market. So what I could feel, what I could see here, that all the people who are like renting the places, I was in that situation. In one moment, I could sense fear, or is it possible that I can tell them something? Maybe they will not love me. If they don't love me or like me, I will not find another house. So I could see that actually, you know, like I was saying always yes, 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 because I was afraid that I will, you know, like stay without my place, or without, you know, like they are like bosses somehow.
Yeah, because at the moment
And they were nice.
it is owner's market, you know, not tenant's market. That's how it is at the moment. So
But you have
they have upper hand, you know. But when situation changes, you know, there'll be those same people who are bullying you subtly, right? They'll be crawling in front of your feet, you know, begging you to take the rental, you know.
But I gave you one
So
example
from
that area.
It's changeable thing, you know.
I gave you that example from that area because I faced that like just last week. But beyond that, like a part of that, there are many other similar situations. For example, if in Balkan countries it's so obvious, here it's not obvious, but it's still there.
It's still there.
And then sometimes you live your life and you're not aware that you actually like moving a little bit because, oh yes. And then you found yourself in some, oh my God, what I'm doing? Why I'm doing that? Why I'm not, telling people what is it, and why I don't stand up for myself. And then like, so how to deal with that here, because there it's obvious, and here it's not obvious. It's somehow under the surface.
Yes, it's under the surface. Yes, but it's the situation. See how governments rule over people.
Probably fear.
Fear. Okay. So in let's say in Australia, and this is my observation, a lot of these trends are actually artificially created. Look at this world. We have financial crisis, this crisis, that crisis, all these crises. They're not natural things. They don't. They're not natural events. Okay, they are fabricated events. Okay, let's say today it was raining and wind was blowing. Okay, so they are the natural events. Okay, uh, could be earthquake. That's a natural event. Well, I hope so. You never know these days. So, but the financial crisis, that's bullshit event. That's not natural event, because still all this population, everybody needs to go to toilet and eat and go to bed and go to work and eat, drink, all that stuff. So that doesn't cease to exist. The world doesn't cease to exist. The night and the shift between night and day doesn't cease to exist. Because there's some financial crisis, because somebody said something and then the whole market went down. So it's also telling you that all these things are actually a castle in the wind. It's a castle in the sand. It's a perceived value. It is the belief system, that created all these structures which are not truth. They don't stand any ground. They are just in virtual world. How is it possible that one company on a stock market can be worth trillions, and then next day nothing? How is it possible? Nothing changed. The building is still there. People are still there. Everything's still there. They're still producing same things, right? So how is it possible? Because somebody said something. So
Somebody's playing.
exactly. So somebody's playing with us. So it is artificially created, and this is the world that the population is allowing to be. Okay, so the system that is creating that is dependent on the population. Okay, but population is not dependent on that. So for the system to exist, it needs people. For people to exist, they don't need system, and they need to realize that. Okay, so when people on the global scale, when they realize that in their minds, they shift the consciousness, there'll be never ever talk about some financial crisis, because those things are just artificial. I don't believe in them. No, not one cent.
Yeah, but still we need to deal with what we have on the market and what
Yes.
we have here.
So
in the case of
yes,
that or any other thing.
if you understand that whole thing starts to trickle down, and then it basically comes to your doorstep in form of the guy who's taking your parking space, or
Yeah.
or I don't know, landlord who's putting you down only because you are renting the place, or all these things. So yeah, so even here in that real estate market, you always see, for example, I ask myself, okay, why is it so expensive? Who made that trend, and who's maintaining that trend? There's a purpose behind all that. Somebody's making huge amounts of money, not the owners or people who are buying and selling things. So there's something systemic benefit there for somebody, right? And it's insatiable. So all that land has been stolen from Aborigines in true reality. So they got it for free. Okay? So how
And
is
they're
it
selling it.
possible that now it's costing millions? Uh, what increased it in value? You know, which action? What's like, for example, if you make something, you put your time and uh, money in it and all that, and you create something and say this is the price. But when something is just not changing its form, how is it possible that it costs so much, you know, or it can change the value? So it's all in people's heads, you know. So that's how they're creating this frenziness and fear, and people act according to that, you know, and they give power through that,
And what
you
we
know.
should do? What we should do? Should we how to stand up for ourselves in that situation? Should we like stay with what we think, or we should probably, but it's not easy always.
You should stay with your own truth, no matter what.
And that also doesn't, because sometimes people think that standing for your truth means that you need to go and fight and like it's action, action, action. It's not like that, right?
It's not like that. No, stand for your truth, and sometimes it means giving up on what is not good for you. You know. So if you are holding something that's hurting you, just release. Not worth
Or
any
taking so
effort.
much energy from
Yeah,
you or
exactly,
something like that.
exactly. So imagine like if people would humanity if we unite into one, you know, the life on this planet would be totally different, you know. So it is something I hope I will witness in my lifetime, you know, but sometimes I lose hopes.
Well, if
When
you
you
live
see
like 500 years, maybe.
when you see how everything's like in total collapse, you know, but yeah, it is sign of time, you know.
And the one final thing is actually when we are not doing that, when we are not standing up for ourselves, uh, then actually we can't walk our path, right?
Yes, correct. So when you don't stand up for yourself, you are creating inner conflict, and eventually you'll fall sick. Yeah? You'll fall ill because of that. So the nature has a self-rightening system, you know. So people fall sick, and there's a reason why that happens. And if they realize the reason for it, you know, not only that they will heal, but they will also transform in their life, you know. So all these, you know, seemingly bad things are actually not bad because they are propelling you further.
They help
They're
you to move.
stepping stone uh, to embrace your true nature, right? So every conflict, even that thing you mentioned about the parking place, it can be a stepping stone for transformation, you know, if it's taken properly.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. But you know, in practical terms, situations like that, they look difficult, you know, because um, the intensity of it and everything happens too fast and all that, and pain bodies everywhere, you
Yeah.
know, and everybody has different way of dealing with it. So it's difficult to say exactly how to deal with, but I always use situations like that to look at uh, the global position, why uh, the universe allowed this to exist, you know. So why is it there, you know? So yeah. Any questions? Do you have any
No,
questions?
I
Yeah.
just checked. There is no questions, and it's time actually. There is no questions, so So we can finish this coffee actually private,
Right on time.
not live, and right on time,
Yeah.
which is actually my impact on Zoran, my good impact on Zoran. And yes, so in 2 weeks we have new Moksha Coffee on Balkan languages. So we actually have Zoran speaks Bosnian and I speak Serbian.
Which is the same
And all
language.
region actually can understand us.
Yeah.
So, and we are always confused how to call that language. So in 2 weeks on our home language, and in a month again on English.
Yeah.
Okay. So people, enjoy yourself and stand up for yourselves.
Yes. Bye now.